I don't know. You know, when you come back from a vacation and you're kind of like, what do I do again?
You're just like dead.
I mean, it's just sort of a like, you know what I'm talking about. You know, like you just, I feel like,
It's hard to get back into the routine.
yeah. Or like you just are sort of like, I mean, I feel like I came back yesterday and it was like, I knew, I you know what I do, obviously. But I came back yesterday and I'm like,
You're like,
you know, to church. And I'm like, it's Scout Sunday and Kids Jam was singing in the element. And I was like, oh, there's like things like happening. I had to like really quickly just snap back to it. And then today I'm like, oh my gosh, like the coffee is not working.
Yeah. And next week we have Lent starting.
Oh, yes, Lee, come on.
That's why I say never go on vacation.
Yeah.
Just work
till you die.
Work. That's what you gotta do. The minute you take time off, then now you're missing that.
That's right.
So don't do that.
That's right. Great advice. Wisdom right there. No Sabbath, everyone.
No,
No rest.
ain't no rest for the wicked. Okay. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Next Day podcast.
The next day on your discipleship journey.
I'm Chad.
I'm Christy.
We're joined by...
Yes, Lee.
Yay! Is this your second time on?
No.
No, she's
Third?
been on a
I've
few
been here,
times.
yeah.
Fourth, fifth?
Probably.
Yeah,
It's been a handful of times.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here, Yesley.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Yesley here because this is the podcast where we talk about the sermons you got to hear on Sunday, and this is the next day. And so you got to hear Yesley in the element.
Woo!
You got to hear Preston in traditional, and you got to hear Carl at the West Campus. So Yesley is the one kind of out of the norm, kind of throwing things a
Yeah.
little different there. Yeah.
It was her first time to preach in
the element.
element.
It's a tough crowd, isn't it?
No,
It's
they
very
were
tough.
lovely.
They never laugh at my jokes.
Oh, okay.
They.
I had to be Chad yesterday, and I was like, man, I miss Chad.
It's hard, right?
It is. You do great social engagement, but it was awesome having you, Yesley. And also, I cannot believe, and you said it was like 5 months. I was like, 5 months that she's been in the element, or I mean, she's been at St. Peter's, and we're friends. Like, it's not like I've been like, nope, you can't preach in here. Like, I can't believe that it has been
Christy's
that
the
long.
gatekeeper, and she's just like, listen, only those with certain skills should be allowed in here. I
Yeah.
barely squeaked in there.
Every time, no. It was good though. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah. Well, you can listen to all those sermons. They'll be up on the podcast, or you could go to the YouTube channels, and you can listen to them there. But let's start with our icebreaker. I guess one is let's just talk right now. Like, did y'all watch the Super Bowl? Anybody watch the big game?
Yeah.
Or did you go to sleep? And
I mean, we went to a neighbor's house, and I just like chatted with my neighbors, and I'd look up every once in a while, and I was like, oh, yep, Seahawks are still winning.
yeah, just by a little. Yeah.
Whatever, don't care.
Oh, okay. Did you watch any, Yesley?
I actually didn't. We're having construction done in our house, and so we were at my mom's, and then the kids just needed to go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It
I
was a
guess I
Monday.
can't ask what y'all's favorite commercials were then. Okay, because y'all didn't pay attention.
I didn't watch any. I mean, I watched the Super Bowl halftime. And I did this morning because I missed the national anthem, but Charlie Puth sang the national anthem, and I thought it was really good. Like, I feel like there have been some really terrible national anthem renditions in the past, I don't know, decade or more. And I felt like his was very good. I really liked it.
It was good.
Yeah. I watched all the musical things that happened in the Super Bowl, and I I mean, it had been years since I had listened to Green Day.
Oh,
I forgot
yeah,
how
Green Day.
much I enjoy them.
Which is that like? I think that's like the first time they kind of did something. Like they
What did
usually
they
don't
do?
have.
Did I miss it?
Yeah, it's a pre-show
Yes.
concert kind of a thing, but and it
Oh.
wasn't just a throwaway. It wasn't just like, oh, they're on a different location. They were in the stadium, a pretty big
It just
set.
seems so fun.
Yeah.
I hope
it
you have the
was.
time of your
Oh,
No,
life.
no, they didn't.
So
do
they
that.
did.
They only did the 3 songs from their American Idiot album or
Yes.
whatever.
So
Yeah.
on the way to work this morning, I actually started listening to Green Day because
yeah.
I'm like, I miss it. And that was the song that played right as I was pulling up to the
Oh.
parking lot. And that song just makes me want to cry every time.
the Good Ridden songs.
Yeah, apparently it's about a breakup.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be.
He's supposed to be like mean.
It's not
Yeah.
graduation, but
Yeah.
it made me think of
But
like
people will
my
play it
kid.
for
Oh, that's what we
graduation.
did for
Yeah,
graduation.
yeah.
That is the graduation song.
No, and halftime was good with Bad Bunny. It was just a fun show. Like it was just fun. Like the
was.
set was really amazing and all. It was just I don't know. It was just I can't say I understood everything that was being said.
I know,
because
at
don't speak
first
much,
I thought-
but the music was just kind of
when it when it
nice.
started and like the camera was panning like these, it looked like fields of I don't know, like of some vegetation. I don't know
Yeah.
what crop it was supposed to be, but like a maze, right? And people in it. I legit was like, oh, they did like a pre-video and like, you know, I was assuming like Puerto Rico or something, and then I realized like, oh no, that's in the stadium. It was
Right?
so
And there's people
crazy.
in the
Yeah, each plant
Yes.
was a person.
Yeah, it was almost like the you go to a child's play and someone's a tree.
Yeah.
It was like everyone was somewhere, and there was all these random cameos. There,
How
and
much
some
did
of them,
every
they didn't
plant
even-
make for doing that?
I think I would have done it for free.
Yeah,
Like how fun to be a plant.
but there wasn't a Left Shark moment. Do you remember the Left Shark?
I do
moment?
remember
the Left Shark
Shark,
just
like
going
Katy
crazy,
Perry.
just going crazy. So there
I did
wasn't a
see-
random tree going crazy in this one.
I did see Jessica Alba.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, he was in there,
oh, okay.
and Ricky Martin. I was like,
Ricky Martin.
but he
Yeah.
didn't sing the songs I wanted.
And
him
Lady
to sing.
Gaga did great, you know. It
Oh yeah,
was-
she
it
was in.
good.
Yeah, so it was just a really good, fun show. So the game was okay. The game was all right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is that? I don't know. That
guess
should
that
count.
was-
Is that our icebreaker?
That's
or,
a nice, I mean,
I don't know.
we were just talking about the Super Bowl. I don't know.
Other than the Super Bowl. Other than that, what would you say is your Super Bowl event that you
Oh.
love to watch on like TV, or you can't wait for it to show up somewhere around the year? What would you call your Super Bowl event?
I mean, it's got to be like a liturgical.
Oh gosh, let's have fun with it. Come
I
on.
mean,
What's
I
the-
don't know. It's like Easter and Christmas Eve, like, are
Is there a Super
legit.
Bowl?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to separate my life from
Your
the
faith?
liturgical calendar.
Oh.
Like, you know, it's, I don't know. I don't know what else it would be.
I mean, I was gonna say, obviously the Olympics, but it only happens every 2 years where I get excited about that. But I don't know. Like, I really get into the Grammys and trying to watch as much of the movies as I can and doing all that. So I really get into that. I don't know if I would put it on the same level as Super Bowl, but like Sable and I get together and we watch it and we really want to see who's gonna win. And yeah, so that's a big
I think
thing.
for me, similar to Christy, the liturgical calendar, but more of the seasons, I really do look forward to, like when it's like the spring equinox and the summer solstice. And
So just any of the 21st.
Right.
yes. So like every 3 months or so to change.
rhythms.
Yes,
and-
rhythms.
yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
And
I
somewhat
like that.
temperature sometimes.
Somewhat. And then like to look back each year as how that rhythm changes.
Yeah.
And then how much our family has grown or how things have changed or things have stayed the
It's like
same.
little New Year's almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Like that.
nice. I'm surprised you didn't bring that up, Chrissy, with your phases of the moon. And you would have been like,
This is why we're soul sisters, you know?
all right, well, let's get to our sermon. We are in the sermon series Flippity Script. The Flippity Script. Where we're looking at different stories and parts of the Bible that remind us that sometimes things just aren't like what we expect them to be, and that this is, this is This is just the way the world will work. This is the way we should treat people. But instead, we see these stories of God. We see stories of Jesus and these other stories of how it flips the script, saying, no. Look at it this way.
Yeah.
No. Do this instead. And then you're like, whoa, you flipped the script. So we've covered several of these so far. We're getting near the end. This is the second to last one of the series.
Yeah, because we close out this week on like sermons, and then on the last real week of the series, we go out and live it, and we flip the script for others with our Church Without Walls.
Yeah. And so so this time we talked about Didymus, and
he loves to do this. He loves to go to, because it's like Thomas also called Didymus, and he's like, I'm calling him Didymus.
And
but in the NRSV, it was twin.
Yeah, twin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's because that's what it means.
But doubting Didymus is just a better sound than doubting Thomas. It's not the alliteration, Chrissy, you of all people.
I know.
But we're talking about the story of Thomas. And interesting thing is, I'm really glad that Yesley got to preach on this. But one of the things, I was slated to do it, but I was like, I feel like I just did this. And then I looked at my calendar. I was like, oh, yeah, I did this back in April, like after Easter.
That's right.
And I was like, I don't know what I would do differently other than doing the same sermon. And so I'm glad that you got to have a new perspective from Yesley.
It flipped the script, on our original plan from you to Yesley. And I was, in Mexico over the week that I suppose the clergy team all got together and decided what we decided the like focal point of this story was going to be is actually not it doesn't hold up with the story. So as I'm listening to Yesley preach, I was like, oh no, she like looked at the wrong thing on this. I'm thinking like Yesley just like got it wrong, like that, but it was tying together, she kept hearing like fear and faith and like, and I was like, oh no, we talked about that last week. So I was thinking, there's a purpose for this. Like this needed to be said for this particular group of people in here. And then you said in the sermon, like we changed it. And I was like, oh, that's what happened. I just missed it because I wasn't here. And it made so much more sense. I loved it. So tell us about it. Tell us about your sermon, from Sunday, just like kind of a overview and anything else that you didn't get to talk about on Sunday that you wish you could have included.
Sure. I think one of the things I focused on with Thomas was his sense of doubt, right? Why we call him Doubting
Didymus.
Thomas. But in my research, one of the interesting things I read was that how depending over the last 2,000 years, depending where the church essentially was, it wasn't necessarily that he's called a doubting Thomas, right? Because like for the early church, the focus was more on the divinity. The divinity of Christ, because how could he have died? Mm-hmm. And so like they wouldn't have actually called him doubting Thomas, like the early church wouldn't have done that. And then when we get to like the 1800s and the Enlightenment, it's like he's very rational. He's asking actual questions, right? So like depending,
you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, we are supposed to. Like
Stop asking questions.
So what Thomas is doing is what a rational person should be doing,
right.
And so I found that was interesting.
Rational Thomas.
I didn't know how to tie that in, but for me, I was just very pulled into. Just the way he was trying to be rational and also doubting because this is just too good to be true. And how all of that feels when you're also surrounded by fear. And I just think that it's very relevant, right? What makes, I think, Scripture the living word and so incredible is that it can be just as relevant as it was 2,000 years ago for us now. And how even though there's all this fear happening, all you're getting from Jesus as Jesus keeps appearing is this calmness and this peace that he keeps bringing, and this grace that he is just surrounding them with, as opposed to like he warned them so much about what was happening, and yet they're still shocked every time they
every
see
single
him.
Time.
And instead of him being like, "Oh my gosh, you guys, you still don't get it," he still keeps coming up.
I told you.
Like a million times.
The third day I was going to come back. You're like, oh, you meant that, Jesus? We thought you were joking this whole time.
You were just saying that.
And so, like, how he's still showing up in just this peaceful, calm way, and greeting them with, like, peace be with you. I just found it to be very lovely. And again, just, flipping the script of how we think of, sometimes we imagine what God is. And then this, again, we get a reminder of who God doesn't react the way we do.
Yeah. And that was something in Preston. When I was in traditional, I got to hear Preston's, and it was this idea that Jesus, we gave this title of Doubting Thomas, or Didymus, as most people say it. But we've given that. We're the ones who kind of years later have added this shame to it, but you don't see that so much with Jesus. I mean, yes, Jesus is there, but Jesus kind of just presents himself to him. He's like, hey, you wanted to see my hands? You wanted to see my side? You wanted to,
here I am.
He didn't sit there and go, oh, Thomas,
right?
Ye of little faith, how dare you? No, I mean, and then you get to that line of, well, blessed are those who have not seen. And I guess you could read that as like he's somehow scolding them, I guess, if you read it that way. But it's also him just saying, hey, you got to see me. But blessed are those who don't see me, and they're going to believe.
Like for the next 2,000 years, that's us, right?
Us.
We are.
Yeah.
So that's a blessing for us.
Yeah.
So he's not sitting there scolding them and making them feel bad. But you could imagine, I'm sure he probably felt that internally. Oh, hey, Jesus.
Yeah, well, I loved what you said, Yesley, and I suppose Preston said something similar, because you were explaining that, we were going to call this sermon Ashamed to Beloved, and that's the script that is flipped. But you were like, but then we were looking over this more in depth, we realized there is no shame in this story. And I love that. I love just naming that. There was no shame in this story. And Chad, like you just said, we've labeled it as shame.
Yeah.
And that actually isn't present. Like Jesus, is there the whole time, shows up in the midst of our, of the doubt, of the fear, of all the things that we're being experienced. Because, right, this is post, crucifixion. It's troubling times, right? They're scared at this point. I've even read about Thomas being really brave. A lot of scholars have taken note of his bravery because of previous stories.
Yeah,
right.
His previous story saying, hey, y'all, I don't care if we get in trouble. Let's follow Jesus.
Yeah, we can go die with you. Yeah, he was very all in. And he wasn't there, which means he was not hiding away. And that is that was bravery at that point.
That was the big part of my sermon a year ago, is that because it wasn't until someone pointed that out that it was a week later.
Yeah.
That he was still hanging around them. And I was like, well, geez, how was that week? Because that's all they could talk about.
Right.
And yet there's something so beautiful about how Thomas was still a part of this community, even in that time of doubt.
Yeah.
And they weren't I'm sure they weren't being mean to him about it or anything. So.
Right. But I loved that. And, and another thing you had said, Yesley, too, is just how Jesus, shows us in this story that we have the kind of God that shows up over and over again.
Yeah.
Shows up for Thomas, and not to shame him, not to be oh, you needed extra proof. Here, fine. Here's your extra proof. It was just showing up and bringing peace and blessing that. That's the kind of God that we have. And I love that. Mm-hmm. I loved walking away with that.
I like this image of you have, Jesus is appearing to them and he goes up to Thomas and then he's just Thomas is just amazed seeing him. And then Jesus is hey, go ahead, put your hand in my side. And then Thomas does it and Jesus goes, ah!
And then he's like, just kidding.
And then Tom's like, oh.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And Jesus is like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And I love too, another thing that just reminded me that you talked about, Yesley, was like Jesus not only showing up for, the disciples and for Thomas, but showing up as someone who has suffered, and it's not like the scars have gone away,
Yes,
I love that. Like showing up with like, I suffered, I endured pain, I endured immense hardship, and, that hasn't disappeared, on this side of the story. Like he's marked with it. And I love that. There's actually, some, scholarship that they take that story, theologians that will take this story when people talk about being in heaven and in like a perfect body, that like, what are we like in heaven? What is our heavenly, glorified form look like? And some scholars have pointed to that and been like, I think we carry our scars.
Yeah, and that's so tricky too, because like I've heard that before. Like, be careful how you talk about that, because I mean, I guess you have different groups of people, right? You have someone who may have, at the age of 50, gotten a car wreck and they lost their arm,
right?
And the image of them going to heaven and having that arm is somehow this kind of wonderful kind of picture for them. But then you have some people who are born without an arm or born without a leg or something. But if you keep saying, well, hey, don't worry, when you get to heaven, it's not like, well, what about me now? Like, am I not good enough now? And so you have to be careful how you teach. And maybe for the same person who's in that car wreck, right? Like, you're beautiful now. I really, it's a tragedy. I'm not trying to make light of it at all, but like, God's going to show up for you as you are now. And
I think too, like, just this is so off topic from the sermon, but it's there. It's present in the story, right? I think we have this idea of what perfect means, and it ties into how Jesus says, "Be perfect as my Father," as I am perfect, as my Father is perfect, right? Talking about in faith, and that trips people up because they're like, I can't be perfect. This is a commandment from Jesus. How can I be perfect? But that perfect means like lives up to their full potential, like becomes who they were created to be, is like the fuller meaning of that word. And in that sense, it's like when we carry our scars with us and we are made perfect in Christ, it's like Jesus takes all of us, everything from the past, everything that we are, and redeems it and makes it perfect and beautiful as we are. Like I think that's part of the story.
I think we also get tricked up with the word of like wholeness, right? We are made whole. And what does whole mean? Because it's about love ultimately. Right. So how are we redeemed where we are like God, which God is love.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Loving at the fullest capacity that you can. And I really get big into talking about, when we talk about sanctification and this idea of being perfect and all that, because it is interesting, because yes, it's intimidating, but we have to look at it. But look at it this way, because I do think that word that Jesus has used, of course I couldn't say it, it's whatever word he uses for that, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, but it's also the same word that in Greek they would use for something being a perfect tool.
Right.
So if I
appropriate.
Yeah. So if I need to, there's a loose screw on this cabinet, I'm going to go I'm going to get the Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going to screw that in. That screwdriver was, quote, perfect. Doesn't mean it's the best screwdriver in the world. Doesn't mean it just means like it was the perfect one for getting the job done.
Right.
And we're trying to live into, how do we do that?
Right.
You know
Teleos.
Teleos.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I can see it in my mind, but I cannot remember what how to pronounce or what the word was, but teleos.
Yeah. It's one of those. Yeah. Because I remember reading a commentary and they mentioned that, but then I was just like, I just know it was a Greek word and it meant this other thing. Right. I can't tell you what it was.
Yeah. And like the fuller definition, perfect, complete, mature, full grown, and I think that it's the wholeness. It's the, made, complete, right? And I think that's beautiful. I think it ties in very well with the story of Thomas too, right? Because like maybe it's not physical scars, but you know, he was wearing his doubt, you know, he was wearing his like, I need, you know, I'm using my rational brain here and I'm not like, it's not connecting and I need more, you know?
Yeah.
And Jesus is like, I'm going to take you as you are in the like rationale and like needing the, you know, to see a little bit more. And I'm going to bring that to you to bring you peace and to bring you blessing. Ultimately, you know, Thomas, that was clearly from the story. Like that's all he needed, right? It was like Jesus to show up for him. And then he's praising God, you know, and he goes on to do amazing things for the early church. And
I don't know the full story, so I don't know if I can explain it, but I do remember reading that he actually goes to India.
yes,
Yeah.
I've heard this.
And
I've
that how
heard that
the-
people in India,
Yes.
like Thomas is like,
and that there's
Yeah.
still Christians alive that can trace back to Thomas being essentially their first spiritual
Yeah.
not leader, but who spoke the gospel to them. So I
Yeah.
think it's just
I mean, that's amazing, right? Like, I think Thomas gets this bad rap, this like,
Yeah.
the memory of Thomas is doubting Didymus.
why'd you say that?
That's,
Thank you for getting it right.
we always kind of come back to that as the focal point of the story is like, well, he doubted. And I'm like, no, I'm like you said,
No.
I think the focal point of the story is that like Jesus showed up.
Yes, because that's the thing. Like Preston really stressed this of saying, like, y'all, like the Bible is a book of doubt. Like there's just
All the disciples
there's
doubted.
Yeah, all the disciples. But then you even get there's like all these stories in the Old Testament. There's all these other stories. Like it's not just everybody just like okay, sure. Okay, sure.
like blindly following.
Yeah, there was like a lot of like, I don't know. You even have people arguing with
Yeah.
God. You have people doing, it's like, so this whole idea that like somehow Thomas is this only one, it's like ridiculous because I always think back at the story of John the Baptist that it's like, you know, you kind of, if you look at John the Baptist's full life, even before it, it's like he knew Jesus was the Messiah before he was even born.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he's sitting there telling everyone, here comes the Messiah. And then John the Baptist is in prison and he's like, are you the one?
Yeah.
Hey, can y'all go ask Jesus, are you the one? And even he's having some questions. It's just like, y'all, like, there's nothing wrong
Like,
with
hey,
this.
before I die for this, is it you?
Yeah. Now, this
Double check.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, whoa.
I have a purpose, and I need to know that I'm living it out.
You let me baptize you way too easy. Are you sure? But that's the thing I always tell. I always have to tell students. If there's one thing I always hope they kind of take away is just like, y'all, it's okay to have questions. It's okay to have, even if you want to title those questions as doubt. I doubt it's doubt. But I think it's just, you just have questions and you're just wondering, you have curiosity of how things are working. Well, how exactly did this happen in the Bible? Like, keep asking those questions. The only time that gets harmful is when you wonder about a question, you just go, well, that doesn't make any sense. I quit. And then I'm never going back to church again. It's like, no, that doesn't help
Dig
you.
deeper.
Yeah, that doesn't help you with it. Like, 'cause there's plenty of stuff in the Bible that when you just look at it, it may not make any sense. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, here, and Preston touched on this too, like, you're not supposed to come back from the dead.
Yeah. Right.
You're not supposed to walk through locked doors.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do these things. And yet, you know, but let's read it and see what we can learn about God, and let's see what we can learn together from it. It doesn't mean just quit the minute you have a question.
Yeah, one of my favorite things I remember reading from Rachel Evans, who's passed away. In one of her books, she talks about how she was interviewing like a rabbi, and he was saying how like on Friday, Shabbat, that is what they do. They sit and they argue
Yes.
about scripture.
There's a word for it, and I can't remember what it is.
And so that is the whole point. We should be reading this and then asking questions, right? Why we don't do this alone. We do this in a group because you do need to hear. And that was the whole point, right? We're spending our time learning more about God, more about each other. And so much of our conversations, a lot of times, don't involve any of that.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's
so
just listen to the person teaching it and just listen to them. And then there's the answer. Like,
right. No, but I mean, and this is like in my Bible study, I always say like my favorite method of teaching is discussion. Like I think that when we are part of the conversation, it forces us to like dive deeper because we're learning to articulate questions and commentary, you know. So I think we learn better from everyone in the room. So I love that. But one thing I always tell people is as they're coming up with these, you know, like, well, but why is it like this? Why does it say this? Or when I'm like, I don't know the answer, and I continue to wrestle with this. I'm like, remember that Israel means wrestles with God. Like that's the point, right? Like we will continue to wrestle with God with this, but because Israel wrestles with God, like God blesses that.
Yeah.
God wants us to continue to come back to him over and over again and wrestle with this content, you know? I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
In a previous life, I was a teacher, and I remember one of the things learning at a training was that they said whoever does most of the talking does most of the learning, right? So if you are the one teaching and you are talking, you're learning a lot.
Like you're trying to
Yes.
learn.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, why discussion is so crucial.
Teachers leave home today. I learned a lot today. And the students are like, huh?
Yeah.
No, but that is true. And that's one thing we always try to do. Like what we do for Sunday school with our students is we base the lessons off of the sermons.
Yeah.
And, you know, and sometimes the point of the lesson and what we do in Sunday school, sometimes the point is not for them to have it all figured out. Or it's just like, hey, if you go to one of the worship services, you're going to hear a pastor preach on this. Well, here's a chance for you to talk a little bit about it. Here's a chance for you to actually read the scripture. Let's have conversations about it. And sometimes the point is like we may not leave there with a clear, like, here's the message we should be leaving with. It's kind of like, let's just keep wondering about this. Let's just keep being curious about this. And that's what I really love about I'm going to give a shout out to our No Label Bible study because that's pretty much what it is like when we get there, there's no set teacher. Nobody's teaching this Bible study. We go through a chapter at a time and then we just read it together and then we just talk about it. And we talk about what doesn't make sense about it or what have we learned about this in the past or what have we, you know, and it's interesting hearing all these different people come together and they're sharing. Yeah, like I remember we had a pastor several years ago, and they shared this. You know, I read this. Oh, what was it? You know, and we're just sharing,
right.
and sometimes some of our ideas and thoughts may completely contradict each other. Where someone may say, you know, this usually comes up when there's like miracles that Jesus does. It's like, no, like this is just what Jesus this is how God acts. And someone's like, yeah, but couldn't it have also been done this way? And it's like, you know, so it's just kind of having those conversations.
No, it's so good, and I think. Whenever you, if you've ever been in this situation, if you're in a class or something and you speak up and, you know, have a question or say something and start, you know, being part of the conversation, I think you remember what you said, you know, you remembered that part of the class more than any other thing. So, you know, I agree. I think you, with what you said, Yesley, that like it is one of the best ways that we learn is by being part of the conversation and speaking up. And I think, you know, also like what this scripture passage shows us is that like Jesus shows up in that. Like when you speak out, like I'm struggling with this.
A week later, when I'm sure there was plenty of conversations. I'm sure Thomas was still like, guys, will y'all stop with that? Like,
yeah.
or maybe he wasn't like against them. Maybe he was just like, man, I missed out on that.
Imagine Thomas not saying anything.
Yeah.
Like imagine him just silently being like, I don't get it. Would he have just phased out?
So,
you know, I don't know.
And that's what I hope not like, because I know, so on Wednesday nights, I do know we have a student who comes and they usually, they're not the most they're not churched, right? And their family doesn't go to church. And I just hope that like when they're part of our Bible study and everything, that yes, we're talking about stuff that they may have never heard of before. Yes, we're, doing all this stuff, but like, I really hope that they're still finding a community and that they see that like, and how we're talking about it. It's not like it's just like we're being so rigid. This is the way it is. And if you don't believe this, we're not doing that. We're just having conversations and seeing how this, how God shows up to us in these different ways and through these different stories and all that. Yeah. So I hope that was the same for Tom. He obviously stayed with them, so they must have been graceful enough.
Yeah.
I doubt they bullied him over it. That would have been
also,
contradictory. Like,
he walked with Jesus through all of those other years and things. It's like, where else might he have gone? Mm-hmm. I don't know where else he could have, at that point. It's like, of
he's
everything.
Still scared. He's associated with, like, if they see him, kind of like Peter that time, they're like, hey, weren't you that guy like
right.
who hung out with Jesus? Like,
right. I mean, I don't know. I just, there's so much there. There's so much richness to the story, which is why I think like this won't be the last time we talk about it. I mean, we talked about this back in April and it was a completely different, way of looking at it. We looked at the whole story through a different lens. And I think we can look at it through more lenses as we, go on through the years. We won't preach the same sermon twice.
No, yeah. I would have done the same one twice because I'm lazy and I would have just done the same thing.
No, you would not.
I would have just done the same thing. But it was a good series, or we still have one more.
We have one more. Yeah, this week we're gonna wrap it up, and it'll be good.
The last time we hear about God, flippity script.
I mean, there's so many
Until
more.
Easter.
Yes,
oh,
that's
yeah.
right.
There's flipping the script.
That's a big flip the script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to our ministry shout out. And so since we have Yesley here, and so for those who don't know, like, here at St. Peter's, we have 5 pastors on staff. And what we've done is we've kind of divided up kind of the different ministries all around the church and kind of saying like, well, who's the clergy point person for this? Because it's not just going to be all under one person. It's not just all under Preston. It's not just, so we wanted to divide it up and that way we can help each other and maybe we could be, more involved in all that. So Yesley, I mean, we all 3 of us here have this, but like Yesley, what are some of any particular ministries you wanted to give a shout out to and what's coming up?
Well, today I definitely want to highlight the Prayer Quilt Ministry. They meet the second Wednesday of every month. So you have time. They're going to be meeting this Wednesday, the 11th. And they meet from 9 to around noon here at the Kingsland campus. And so if you know how to sew, it's fantastic what they do because you don't need to know how to make a quilt. Mm-hmm. They do essentially an assembly line. And so then every person touches that quilt in different ways. And those are the quilts that at the end of at the end of their meeting, we pray over those quilts and they go to people who are struggling either because they're in the hospital or just someone that is having a hard time with grief. And so it's beautiful how so many people just touch that quilt, but it's prayed for. And then I did mention that even in my sermon yesterday about how sometimes that peace shows up in different ways. Yeah. And sometimes it's through a quilt, right? Where you just feel the presence of God and you're reminded you're not alone in whatever season you're in. And so, and then the ladies, like, it's not for we have a lot of ladies, but men are welcome if you know how to sew.
And actually, they say that they'll teach you, kind of the basics of sewing, and they do hand sewing as well as the machine.
Yes, because some of the, if you can't see for any reason or you're struggling with the machine, then you can also hand sew. And then they go and have lunch sometimes. So it's a great opportunity not only to like learn something new, but to like connect and start new friendships and community in a different way that might be different than just a Bible study or church.
Yeah, and guys are definitely welcome because sewing is full of hymns.
Oh my gosh. I do have a story.
Did they have you in stitches?
I did. Okay. I got a side stitch from that. No, I do have a story about this. So I have a family friend who has had breast cancer a few times, just some recurrence of it. And the church sent her a quilt, and she is agnostic. But, there's one little patch. It has a little Bible verse, and it says that it's from St. Peter's, that the quilt ministry made this. And it was so special to her. I mean, it has continued to be and she's commented on it. Like, she's like, I just feel like I'm wrapped up in peace when I have this quilt on me. And what I think is so beautiful is she's a seamstress, and she's made quilts. She made quilts for my daughter and my son when they were born. Like, she's made quilts and sewn things for people all the time. And she was like, but somebody made this for me, and prayed over it for me, and that just meant so much to her.
We had someone from our church who was going in for surgery last week, and I remember talking with them on the phone like a couple of days before, and they were saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna remember to take the prayer quilt I got from a couple of years ago, and I'm gonna make sure I take it with me." And so it's just those type of things. So it is a very meaningful thing to people. And I know at my last church, I received a prayer quilt whenever my grandmother died, and I wasn't expecting it. Like, and all of a sudden, it just showed up on my desk. I was like, oh, and I still have it in my office, and I look at it all the time. And so, but yeah, so very special. Yeah. So this is the crochet ministry, right?
This is the
quilt
ministry. But we do have a crochet ministry.
We do have a crochet ministry.
Yes, that meets at West Campus.
Yes.
Yeah.
But quilting ministry meets second Sunday.
Wednesday.
Okay,
oh
I'm
my
gonna
gosh,
stop talking.
Chad.
I'm gonna stop talking.
Ministries.
Can they quilt me a calendar?
Yeah, there you go. Second Wednesday
of every month here at Kingsland.
What time do you know?
From 9 to noonish. Sometimes they end like at 11:30 or 11:45. So, but the start time is at 9.
Really cool. All right. Well, Yesley, we're so glad you got to join us.
Thank you for having me.
So for this thorough conversation over the Super Bowl, complete analysis, and so
yes.
If that's what you're looking for, just come back next week when we talk about I guess the Olympics more. I already have plenty to talk about.
I know the icebreaker question is always a surprise, so never know.
No, it'll still be something Winter Olympics. I just need to do that. All right. Well, all right. Well, we hope you can all join us next week as we finish up the Flippity Script series, and then we're getting ready for Lenten season.
That's right.
You know what that means. Fish sandwiches.
Oh.
At all the fast food places, here come the fish sandwiches.
Your Arby's is gonna...
Maybe every time we do next day, I'll give a highlight over my favorite or a new fish sandwich or something.
Oh, I can't wait,
That's
Chad.
what I'm going to take on for Lent.
I can't wait.
I'm going to take on fish sandwiches. All right, well, we'll see you all next week on the Next Day Podcast.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.